What's up everybody, I'm Zephyr, and today I will show you my latest track, Starlit Retreat. This track is free to download with a link in the description below, but if you find you want to break this track down even further, you can consider supporting me on Patreon, where I'll post my MIDI files, my audio stems, and project files for your own educational use. Alright, we're going to start with the sketch here. The way this one was made is made in the key of D, but I just used basically the same chord throughout the entire process. So you can see here, this is the first chord. Second chord, third chord. It's a 1, 4, 5 scheme, and I didn't really like build chords around this. I sort of just kind of built one chord, and then I started playing with it. So this is essentially the same chord throughout the entire section of the song. It's just the bass note changes, and it just allowed me to it just came from playing around with different like ways to group my chord progressions, and I finally settled upon this. The melody is on top here. We'll listen to it. And from there, that's how the entire song was kind of structured and built. I used this kind of melody throughout the entire portion of the track. So this is kind of like this right here, this little piece is sort of like the main theme of it. And these are all like flourishes, kind of I take the same repetition of the melody and just kind of change the notes a little bit. It could even be a octave up, yeah, so I took the bottom part and just moved it an octave up, and sort of, just found creative ways to keep making this part sound more interesting as the mix progresses on. After that, I have this the sketch portion laid out in a more rhythmic fashion, and this is what I use to kind of continue the track. And that's really about it. The way that I arrange these kind of notes is usually I just take them and I skip a couple of steps, place one, skip a couple of steps, place one. You kind of do it in that fashion. It gives you that classic bounce you're looking for. Now we'll show you the plucks. And basically what I've done here is I just created a harmless patch, and I just created it to taste. Mostly I tuned the unison, the filter frequency, the amount, and the pluck, and I added some distortion to it so I can give it a little bit of grit. You can kind of hear it kick in as certain notes sort of layer on top of each other. The MIDI data is the same as my sample, and then on top of that it has a little bit of verb that it's routed to, which is a Valhalla shimmer, which I used as my reverb of choice throughout this entire track. The thing about Valhalla is 100% on the mix. I turn down the mod depth a little bit, and I always turn the shift down a little bit as well, because it causes these kind of like, you know, pitch changes sometimes that I don't like. The second part is a more like fluffy kind of addition to the pluck, where it's just kind of made to accentuate the pluck itself. You can see it's like more heavily layered with delay, and it kind of bounces around a little bit more, and it's upper and a higher register as well. So I just kind of took the upper notes of that, and I sort of played around with that just to add those little pluck sounds coming in, floating around throughout the melody. The same thing here, I think, is it just has some EQ done to it. This is just a shaping. I shaped it, and I didn't even do any post afterwards, but I was just cool with that. And then I ran it through a stereo shaper, which is just to spread the sound out just a little bit further, so it's not kind of occupying the center as much as the first pluck is. It is also running to some verb, the Valhalla shimmer, and running to some sidechain into my melody bus, which just has some EQ on top of it. All right, let's talk about the Arps. And the sole purpose is just to, you know, add a little bit of flavor and build the track a little bit. The very first one I used is just a Nexus preset that I found, and I'm automating the filter cutoff on it. So I'm automating this knob right here. And then on the mixer, I have it going through some EQ, and then I have a patcher where basically this patcher preset is one that I've created where I basically run it through reverb, and as the reverb's turning up, it phases the reverb out as well, and it I want to say it low passes. Yeah, it low passes the signal as well. It's just kind of a mix, and I just have it all attached to one knob, and I use this quite a bit in my productions. It's just something that I've always liked to do rather quickly, and this enables me to do it. Then I have that running through some post EQ afterwards, and of course that is running through some reverb into the shimmer. The next section is the art pad. And same thing, it's just I basically picked out the prettiest notes that I like, where I emphasize the D, the A, and the D, and running it through some filter cutoff as well. Not too much, but that's basically this patch itself is very lush, so I didn't really have to do much to it except, you know, automate the filter a little bit just in different little sections of the track. And I have the same little reverb knob where I fade it to reverb as well. And then I got this running through some reverb, the shimmer, the global verb, I guess you could call it, EQ, and a little bit of stereo shaper to spread it out just a little bit wider from everything else. All right, now we're going to go ahead and go over the pads and the melody section of the track. Here is the pad. And I really like this pad. I actually did a lot of emphasis on automating the filter cutoff to make it kind of whoosh in at the beginning of each track. And then in contacts. So I kind of like built in a little like crash built into the pad, and it was just like a really cool idea when I was doing it, and I liked the way it sounded, so I just ran with it throughout the entire track. And that's kind of the highlight of the pad right there. I have it running through some EQ, and then of course I'm not sure if I made this pad or this is a preset, not 100% positive, but regardless, how it sounded when it was designed was perfect for like what I imagined for the track. And I'm gonna skip right on over here to the melody. And it's probably easier to hear it in the second portion. So it's not really like I don't know, I wouldn't call it like a traditional melody. It's made to be like really simple, you know, kind of like play around with your ears and sort of help you, you know, enjoy the chord progression as it goes along. So that's pretty much the simplest part of it. It's I emphasized like two kind of sounds, which was this little square sound. And then I had a like another sound that was different, more like a maybe like a thin square sound, you know, but the culmination of these two together kind of creates the whole melody. And I pretty much follow the same style here where I just play the melody out. And then as it fades out through portions of like the bridge and things like that, I'll add a little bit of variations to it. You can see that I make these unique quite a bit throughout my tracks. I usually make everything a little bit unique. And I do that just to kind of add like what I hear is different. Like for example, this one, I just kind of layered two on top of each other. And I kind of doubled it, went up top, brought some notes down, make them meet, you know, just try different little tactics of creating interesting portions of the melody. Since I am using like, my basis is this, and I'm using that to kind of like play around and see what else I can stretch out and do. And then I'll go ahead and go over this little pad right here. Or actually, no, not yet. I'll go to the mixer for these. I believe they're on the same. No, this one's on a different one. But there's nothing too much going on. There's just some EQ. A little fade to verb kind of knob that I've created. Running through to the global verb and then routing to the mixer channel as well. Same for my other melody is literally just some EQ going on where I just rolled off the lows. So I didn't really even mess with these too much. This is mostly just volume mixing. And then I called it good where it was at. All right, now we're going to talk about the bass. And it's pretty simple. I just made created a harmless patch here. Super simple little stuff. Basically, turn the unison down, bring the master pitch down a little bit, turn the frequency just down to where it sounds good to your ear. And then I work with it a little bit more in the mixer where I added a compressor to it. Top of that, there is some EQ. And that is the basis of the bass. There is another patch here. And this is more for just carrying the bridge along. So I did a little bit more edits to it, turned the frequency up just a little bit, and ran it through some EQ where I rolled off just a little bit of the ultra lows. And it's just literally just to help kind of keep the track going, kind of help progress it. And that's it right there. There's nothing more to it. Actually, before I go to the next section, let me talk about this little pad that I missed here. And the essence of that was I found a patch that I used in Citrus. And it's attached to the same as my Plucks, but it was just meant for just adding a little bit more atmosphere and creativity to the bridge. Pretty simple here, but I'll break it down to each little element. First, the main element is, of course, the kick. I have a lot going on with the kick. I was playing around with a lot of different things and done a lot, but basically the main thing is I've EQ'd it. I've run it through a compressor, a little sound goodizer. It's just basically a compressor, and then some post EQ afterwards, where that post EQ is most likely used for as a low pass for the intro and outro. I have this routed to a drum bus where basically there's some EQ applied, some compression, some more compression, some post EQ, and then a volume and filter control on the drum bus. So there's a lot going on there, but hopefully I can help it all make sense. If there's anything that doesn't make sense, though, just ask me or leave a question, and I can probably answer that more in detail for you. The first part is the drum loop. Pretty standard, you know. This is probably what I picked when I started out, but I wanted to keep it in the track while I created my drums around it. The thing that I did here was automate the volume, and then I automated the mod X and Y knobs of the drum loop so it can go out and fade out, you know. You know, it kind of gives it that little classic fade out sound. Move on to the claps. Basically they're the same. Just I picked out a lot of these are like samples I just pick out. I'm very random when it comes to it, and I just kind of like try to make it work, and then I'll go back and change it if I need to, you know. But the thing here is that just have them routed to the drum bus more than anything else. So there's like no EQ or anything applied to them. They're just routed to the drum bus. So it's just basically just layers. I just made a couple layers or 3 layers. This is like the flourish to add on extra stuff here. Basically, the thing that I emphasize when I write the drums is you kind of want to hit that every offbeat sort of thing. I don't know how to explain it, but you know, you get what I'm saying. And then percussions. And a lot of this is just I route them to mixer tracks, and it's just mostly for volume automation. There's a couple of things I do. I like EQ out things, but the hats typically and the percussions, sometimes I route them to their own little mixer channel, but I didn't do it this time. I did do it for the perks though, because I wanted to add some stereo to them. And then a little bit of like reverb where as it goes into the bridge, you can hear the percussion start to fade out. And then, but the big thing here is I basically ran everything to my drum bus. And so a lot of the EQ is controlling, like, you know, the overall elements of the drums. And this is mostly just to stereo out specific sections. Why I use the multiband. A little bit of boost right here in the mids. And we already know what these are. All right, now we'll start on the sound effects and the different things that I've used here. Basically, these little chimes were just for the bridge, so to add a little bit of atmosphere. And I use it to add like special atmosphere, you know, atmosphere that's dedicated just to a specific portion. And I created that with just using these chimes. It's just a little chime sample, and I have it running really hard through the shimmer, so that's what's giving it that beautiful little tail on the end. And then you got your normal kind of impacts or downlifters, you know, that I use. Same thing, kind of emphasize the bridge portion of the track. A little impact there, another impact there. This is all just to flavor and to tastes. And then we have the mixer tracks that they're routed to, which basically, as you can see, they're all pretty much just going to a FX version of the Verb, which is just a more tailed out version, and I think I just have a little bit of different EQ on it. And then I have a little portion here. And I use this to bring in the rest of the song from the track. And I made this by just tailing out specific sections. Taking the reverb portions, tailing them out. Where it ended here. Took that portion and I just reversed it, and then kind of brought all the stuff in to where the section happened at the same time. I kind of forgot about this little section and how I worked really hard on just kind of adding a space at the end of my bridge. So yeah. This is where I just took the melody and just kind of arped it up as high as I could, just because it was like a little flourish for the end of the bridge, and then, you know, the normal song came back in. But the important thing is I used this little effects right here to help kind of build the little tension up to revert back into the verse. This is like a good concept to practice on. I'm not like super good at it, but it's just, I just do it to my taste. Honestly, I don't go too in depth or too crazy with it. Sometimes I can get crazy with these little like sections where you drop and bring this stuff in, but I try not to spend too much time just going crazy and, you know, creating things. I just kind of let it flow as it may. I'm going to go ahead and go over these vocals here. Let's come over here. And there's a lot going on here with the vocals, but this is just actually, I've exported this little bit. So I found the original vocal, and then I ran it through some EQ, ran it through some compression, which is, I really like this compressor for vocals. Pitcher, just to, I was just adding taste, and this is more like experimentation. So yeah, I was just experimenting with like different keys and seeing what would happen. Delay, of course, some EQ as well. And then I have that chorusing, which was just to give it a little bit of a stereo flavor, along with a low pass and then a stereo shaper to shape it even further out. So without the effects, so it was just my work to design to make it like fit the mix, but at the same time still give you that air and presence, because I'm always going to try to add vocals into the mix. Thank you everybody for listening to me break down this track. I really appreciate it. As usual, this track is free to download, and you can access that in the links below. Also, you can support me through Patreon, where you can access a higher quality version of the track, my MIDI files, my audio stems, and project files as well. I really appreciate it. My goal here is to show you my thought process and break down any concepts that I use that may interest you. And if you have any further questions about this, please don't hesitate to let me know in the comments. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and thanks for chilling with the Cool Breeze.